Hello, thank you for joining us today in our Business Gateway webinar survival series. I'm Danny Gallagher, the Business Gateway Manager in Highland. And today's topic is rebuilding and adapting your business with digital tech and marketing. We have allowed a few minutes to get folk into the go-to webinar because we know that it takes a couple of minutes just to log on. And obviously, as soon as you do that, you then come across the form, which you have to complete. So thank you very much for doing that. So just a couple of housekeeping issues. I think we're up to about 90 folk on this webinar just now. But we'll be recording the webinar and it'll go on our website, bgateway.com. So please share it as you wish once we load it on. We've also asked everyone who's registered if they want to submit a question beforehand, and we'll take those during the session. So if you've got a question, please feel free. If something comes up, you can just put it in the chat box there. And if there are a significant number of questions, we can obviously deal with the questions afterwards with any kind of supporting resources. So the numbers are just going up just now. We'll just give another maybe half a minute or whatever just for folk to join us. I think this will be a very interesting and interactive session on digital. Digital has obviously changed in the past few months, or we've changed depending on which way you want to look at it. So our guests today are well versed in digital platforms and what they should be used for, and we might get some insights into what they shouldn't be used for, but we'll certainly change the way we do business in the last 8 or 9 months, and that's from small businesses to larger organizations. So we're just heading towards 100 attendees. We'll probably just kick off now and just use the chat box if you want to ask some questions. So we have a panel today, and one of my podcast regulars, if you listen to the Business Gateway podcast, is Sarah Johnson from IndigoLeap. And for those that don't know Sarah, you better give us your intro, Sarah, to what you do.
Okay, so hi, I'm Sarah. I run a little agency, IndigoLeap. So we're a data-driven marketing agency. So I've been working in digital marketing for over 15 years now, and I love it. So it's good, have good fun.
So the digital guru is in the room, and we've also got John Callagy from the Scottish Business Resilience Centre. Morning, John.
Good morning, Danny, and thanks for having me on this morning. So yeah, I'm John. I'm the head of community and membership at SBRC. And for anyone who doesn't know what SBRC is, we're a non-for-profit who kind of lays between public and private sectors in relation to security, not just cyber, but also business resilience. So we have members from our seconded members from Police Scotland and Fire Service who also come and give us a hand with sort of presentations around anti-corruption, money laundering, things like that as well. So we span quite a bit in terms of security.
Thank you, John. So we do have another guest who is hopefully going to join us at some point today, Patrick O'Shaughnessy from Visit Scotland. So just a kind of brief overview of the Business Gateway webinar today. The pandemic has shown businesses the advantages of using online platforms effectively, providing a direct, low-cost way to keep in touch with clients and to take bookings and facilitate online sales and much more. For some, they've also provided an avenue to surviving the impact of the crisis, as businesses have closed or lost footfall traffic that would have typically resulted in sales. I'm afraid to say that this pandemic situation is set to continue for the foreseeable future and beyond. And if that's not bad enough, we're also looking to the new year when we leave the EU. And yesterday I broadcast a podcast about leaving the EU. So if you get an opportunity to listen to that, we do talk about e-commerce. And it's due to be uploaded onto the B Gateway website this afternoon. So thinking to the future then, it's unlikely to see how consumer trends will shift back And in order to prepare for this, businesses, I guess, have to leverage digital technologies to their full advantage to succeed. So maybe if I come to you, first of all, John, and ask, why you think digital has been a key driver for businesses during COVID-19?
Quite simply, where else do you go? It's the only avenue that is open at the minute, like the same way it was before COVID happened. I guess there's more people online now, so that there's a bigger sort of trail of people coming to websites and stuff like that. You have more users kind of getting involved. I think with digital, it's opened up a lot of avenues for businesses who didn't realize they could actually engage with it as well. You have more people doing this with webinars and stuff like that. You're engaging with a couple of hundred people who before you might have only had a session with 20 or 30. So it's kind of expanding in ways that previously there just wasn't an option. I think also with this is that it's shown that companies can utilize different options than what they may typically have thought. You don't have to necessarily pivot, but you can adjust maybe and take on a bit more, different options.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, do you think it's pushed businesses then in the direction of digital, whereas they wouldn't have thought of?
I think definitely. I mean, I think a lot of us are guilty of this. I know that we are ourselves, is that your digital is often on the to-do list. It's very important, and so it's on the to-do list and you have to consider it. But really with COVID, it has forced it from on the to-do list to an immediate priority. And all of a sudden, for many businesses, digital became the main business premises, which then just really focuses it down. And I think one thing to note is that obviously a lot of the technology was there. So Zoom existed before the pandemic. It's just then you would normally see the rise of the early adopters going up, whereas really it slammed us all into being early adopters. So it's businesses, but because consumers are online. So what we've seen is a lot more consumers being online because there was no other option. So we've even seen previously more reluctant demographics going online in higher numbers. So I think we've not got any real stats out yet from 2020, which will be really interesting to see internet usage across demographics. But a few things that are coming through is, say, over 65s have gone from 22% of over 65s in the UK making video calls a week in February, which is now up to 61% in May, because it's just forced everybody to use these new technologies. And I think it's important to note that once people have gained confidence in digital and use it, and it's become more of a habit, then that kind of online behavior is going to be here to stay. I think we are going to still see the increase in online shopping and still see the uptake across all. So I think digital has become front of mind for everybody, and for good reason.
It's interesting you mentioned Zoom. I suspect if you asked anyone in January what's Zoom, there would be very few folk would know what it is. And I honestly, I don't know anyone who doesn't now know what Zoom is and what it does. And we're talking about folk even in their 80s, and I don't want to be ageist or anything, but it's incredible. Just talking about business online. So how should businesses start serving their customers online?
I think before you do anything is just take some time to plan and think about what the best route for you is, because it depends really, what are you trying to get out of it? Why are you serving people online? So are you going to offer a fully online service, or is it just a hybrid? Is it just going to be little bits? So you do need to take the time to think about why you're doing it and what you want to get out of it. What service exactly you are going to provide. It can change once you test and adapt, but think about that first. And also the knock-on implications of that. Is there implications on cost of your service? Is there implications on the back end? Is there implications for customer, for privacy, data, all of those kind of things? And digital booths do have quite a lot of information and guides which can help you during that planning stage. But also have a look at what people are doing. But I would definitely get your ducks in a row first, because it's easy to change some things, but other things, if you're fully invested in a new platform, it's then slightly more tricky to just change that afterwards. So plan first. And then a very simple first step would just be keep people up to date online. So if you're not already using social, probably now is the time to embrace it. If you don't have a website, or if your website's quite old, maybe now's the time to update your website. And there's lots of platforms to help with that, like Squarespace or WordPress or Wix. Lots of these websites are no longer this big. It doesn't have to be a big, huge design and development job. There's a lot of templates that you can use. So I think once you've kind of got those basics up, you then need to start thinking, right, okay, so how do we do it? And it depends if you're selling tangible items, if you're selling time and space, or if you're selling services. So sorry, I feel like I'm speaking really quickly here. I just want to get it all out. But if you are selling online, so say you're going to start selling tangible products online, if you're in retail or you want to sell things online, look at the back office elements, because now there's going to be different logistics. There's going to be inventory management, potentially different systems. There's going to be a lot of different kind of back office elements of that. So look into what that's going to be. What are the implications for costs? What are the implications for data security? What are all of these things? Have a look at that first. And then consider the how. So how are you going to sell online? And a couple of options would be, you could sell through existing marketplaces like eBay or Not on the High Street or Amazon, where you've already got this pool of customers, if you like, and you're kind of entering that market where you already know they are. But obviously check fees, terms and conditions, terms of service of any marketplace before you go in to make sure that it's a fit. But you might also want to consider actually having your own online shop. And sometimes your website provider will have an option for you to tack on an e-commerce offering, or you could consider something like Shopify, which offers an end-to-end service. So you can either have an e-commerce, like a buy now button on your blog or your site, or you can just set up an entire online shop. And then once you've thought of those, you have to think about taking payment, which is the best bit. And there's lots of options for that as well. So like PayPal and Shopify payments. And I think ultimately we would use different platforms that are out there. Have a look at the platforms and see.
Okay, well, we've got a number of questions coming in now, which we'll come on to in a second. John, and just Sarah talking about investing in digital platforms. Any thoughts on that from you, from the Scottish Business Resilience?
Yeah, definitely. And actually, like Sarah's answer there summed it up so well. There's a few things I think I'd like to expand on, I guess. Why is so important, but don't do it just because someone else is doing it as well. Like every business is unique. Look at the options that you will need to take on. For us at the start of lockdown, like many others, we did a lot of events, and we chose to invest in quite an expensive Zoom option very early on. Because we're not for profit, whenever this happens, like many companies, you really need to get the investment back on it. We're now 50 webinars deep with tens of thousands of people engaged. It's just unfathomable that we could engage with this many people over that short period of time. The investment has paid for itself because we get to engage and we get to keep our customers engaged. But at the start, when you're spending that couple £100 on something like this tool, that you're like, is it a month, is it 2 months, what's going to happen? Looking at that, it created something that we didn't think would be possible, but we used it to its fullest potential as well. It wasn't a case of throwing things together. It was opening doors for various different ways. It wasn't just for doing a webinar for the sake of doing a webinar. It was recording it and using that as content for YouTube and for social media as well, taking out snippets and sharing that as like tasters. Here's the full thing, come to our next session. Onto that as well, we ran a mentoring program called Scottish Business Cares, which engaged with industry professionals from all walks of and sectors of life. We had financial, marketing, security, but it was a very close-knit sort of circle that we were mentoring. With that, it was also opening up doors of doing breakout sessions and stuff like that, which we wouldn't have been possible in a lot of other platforms. But it was investing in that early days and actually taking it forward was what was hugely critical for kind of our engagement with our customers, at least throughout the lockdown so far.
Okay, we're going to take some questions now. This is a cracker. This is a real common one. So Andrea says, why am I never on the first page of Google? Sarah.
I think that, yeah, a lot of people will say that. I think with search engine optimization, so that's the process of optimizing your website to appear higher up in the search engines. If you think about it, it's like a high street where every shop wants to have a premises on it. So there's a limited amount of space. And what can sometimes happen is Google looks at a lot of different factors to decide who gets to be in the top spot for a given phrase in a given place in a given time. There's lots that go into their algorithm, but they're really looking at how old is your website, how do people behave on your website when they get there, how many people link into your website, is your website a good bet, are people going to get what they want when they go there, does it have keywords on it are still important. So there's a lot of things that look into it. So if you are having difficulty ranking on Google, you can sometimes, instead of trying to rank for the top phrase, think about what we call the longer tail. So sometimes it's easier to rank for the more specific phrases. So instead of me wanting to rank for, say, marketing or marketing in Edinburgh, I could rank for growth marketing in Edinburgh or data-driven marketing in Edinburgh. And you can go to kind of down and down into a longer tail phrase and focus on those first and try and optimize the different parts of your website for those phrases and try and kind of build up from there. And really, search engines do still like content. So having content on your site is still important. Google started out as a library indexing search engine, and it does still have that at its core. But there's a lot of, there are guides online on Digital Boost about SEO, which kind of cover quite a lot of the basics, which would definitely be worth checking out.
Yeah, definitely. And our webinar workshops are actually very good for that. Frank has asked, so many people have changed their habits and embraced digital access, particularly in respect to mobile phone access. So do Sarah and John think that these habit changes are permanent? So basically no going back?
I think it's going back in a way. I think it'll be a mixture. I think habits have changed, but once we come out of this, people are going to want to start engaging in the ways they were beforehand as well. And it'll be a whirlwind, I think, when we kind of come out of the pandemic and events in physical form are going to be back. Engagement online will probably go down for a little bit, but it'll go back up because people are so used to it. It's going to be a mix. It's definitely not permanent. At least maybe it will be, but I really don't think it will be. I think it's going to be a mix. But people will be so more used to putting their trust online that I think we'll see percentage of over 65s or whatever using online will continue to be quite high, I think.
Yeah, I think for what we kind of think is we often talk about, say, Generation Z, so the younger generation and their online habits. And then what tends to happen is it kind of slowly trickles up. So that's why everybody gradually moves online. But the pandemic has really speeded that up. So it means that everybody's online behaviors have changed very, very quickly, which maybe would have taken a few years, has happened quite quickly. But yeah, I think people will still want to be people. But I do think a lot of the online shopping trends will probably stick, in the kind of the growth in mobile and the push, because I mean, that's been coming a long time anyway. So I do think once people have their confidence levels up, that will probably change their behavior.
So we've got a couple of related questions. Someone's asking, what about videos? Do they get more reaction? And Siobhan has asked, she's a yoga therapist, and she'd like to start putting training videos online to make a passive income, but she doesn't know where to start. So much to consider. I'm not even sure I know what a yoga therapist is, but how's she going to do this? How's she going to make money from it?
Look to go ahead, sorry.
No, you go, John, you're fine.
No, I was just going to bring it back to the point that you made earlier. Like it's looking to yourself and seeing what content you'll be able to create firstly, and focus on that. With something like a yoga therapist, there's quite a lot online already, so you're going into a very, very difficult market. But if you focus on what you will bring to it and make that your niche, I think that's probably the key to something that there will be a lot of competition with. Not only that, but where your viewers going to come from, it's not going to happen just magically overnight on YouTube or whatever. You still need to focus on your customers, your small community. So that could be like even people in your local area, sharing the video to them. That gets you started, and that starts building views. When you start building views, then you start getting more organically, and that's the fundamentals of utilizing free organic views, is making sure that you have a community of people who will engage with you straight away from the start.
Yeah, 100% agree. It's starting with what do you have now. So the network that you've got now, utilize that and grow. And it's quite difficult with content, because you kind of feel like once you've made it and you've put it up, that's it. But really, you're thinking maybe a couple of years down the line, or a couple of years, but a set amount of time down the line will be when it starts to snowball. So all of the things add up. So it's not a short-term win, because you do have to grow your audience, you do have to get cut through, but you do have to start somewhere. So yes, start with your audience that you have, and try and bring a niche to it, maybe that isn't already served. Is there a different angle that you could have that would get?
Stop you right there, Sarah, because I'm just coming on to this. We're still on yoga. Julia has said that hers is a very small niche market called slow yoga. That sounds like something I might enjoy. She spent hours and hours sending out emails. She's built up her own website. She's 65. It took her 3 months to do her own website. She says she's at an impasse. The website takes up so much time, she's getting nowhere. But her last sentence is interesting. She's so thrilled and amazed that yoga works on Zoom, which I think is fine. But then I wonder how we generate business from that.
This is an interesting one, and yoga is actually something that I kind of was looking at early on, because so many people were getting into it at the start of lockdown through video and stuff like that. But so many people were looking for different things with yoga as well. I've seen people with they only had 15 minutes to spare, so the 15-minute videos were coming through. But it was even what I'd heard from people was that they liked certain yoga teachers more than others, so it was ensuring that your content was delivered in a certain way that would appeal to a certain person, as opposed to just delivering yoga content to anyone, because people were looking for the sort of comfort in an instructor that they could sort of relate to or something like that. Yeah, I'm going around in circles with this one, but spending hours on the website is very important in the early days, because you won't be doing it later. Like, you'll just update your video once it's done or whatever. But it's worth it in the early days to send out all the emails, build that sort of early traffic. It's the same with everyone. You have to spend them days and days and days on working on the foundation.
Well, let's talk about videos. Let's talk about videos, guys. So one of the questions, what about recording of videos? Is it okay to record them on your phone? Do you need something a bit more glitzy? Does it depend, where you're porting it onto, whether it's a website or social media? How, and can you edit on your phone? Sarah?
Yeah, I think I think it depends what you want to do. If the main route of your business is video, then you might, and you want to compete with other people whose main business output is video, that's when you probably want to invest in better equipment. You maybe want to train yourself up at editing, or have somebody help edit your videos. If that's going to be your main product, then the video should kind of get the same level of attention as any other product that you're selling with. So that's when you would maybe need more equipment. You'd need to think about, where are you recording? How are you recording? How are you editing? A lot of effort will need to go into, like you're saying, your background, how you're presenting yourself. Like, this is your end product. So I think if your video is your end product, it will probably need more time and investment and equipment. Whereas if your business is something else, but you're using video to promote yourself or to share content, that's maybe when you can use, again, it depends. But yeah, you can definitely record yourself on your phone and share it, but it would depend what the purpose is. And
okay. So we've talked mainly about businesses, and Neil has asked a question on behalf of communities. He says that he wants to know if we've seen an increase in interest in communities marketing themselves as a whole, not just individual businesses. He's from Stonehaven, and he's saying that they have seen an increase in their website, stunningstonehaven.com. There's the free plug. John, has that been the case?
Community has blown up. Like it's just got insane. And I think the clearest way of seeing this is the sort of Christmas marketing that's going on at the minute. Support your own and support your local shops and stuff like that. I imagine most local businesses are seeing a huge increase in traffic online because of that sort of processes. Community building has been something that's overlooked for many years. I think people kind of neglect the fact that there is so much power in community. There's so much power in the regular users as opposed to just getting in new users. There's a great case study on how Apple used it years and years ago, the evangelism marketing, getting in some power users and getting them to spread word for you as well. If someone really enjoys your product or service and they tell 2 more people, them 2 other people are probably more likely to take on your service than if they just saw your ad on social media or whatever. People often kind of neglect that sort of side of it because it's just word of mouth or whatever, but it's so powerful. And if they're seeing views that have increased recently, it's probably because of that. It's probably people just being like, oh, check out this website, I saw it there the other day, and God, they've got great stuff on it or whatever. It's just changing the way things are kind of working at the minute, for the better as well, I think, because there's just more trust, I think, being built around communities.
Have you experienced that, Sarah? More communities
Yeah,
getting
I would totally agree. And even just in my day-to-day life, so we have little community Facebook groups, and it's gone from being, I don't know, dog fouling issues to setting up virtual high streets for just local makers in the area, and it's blown up. Practically every person I know has bought more than one item from a local maker that you would never have known about before. But in these just little Facebook groups, people have been inundated. I do think there has been a focus on local, a focus in your real life community, which is then taken online, and more people kind of sharing online communities instead of virtual communities, if you like. We've had quite a lot of virtual children's activities for Christmas as well on our local Facebook pages. So there's definitely been a blending of where you live, both kind of physically and digitally. I do feel like I live in a digital community now as well with my neighbours.
So for businesses, quite interesting, because we're now promoting the shop local. So for businesses, they could tag themselves onto the community website or whatever, and being able to list their services on there. Just a couple of things. Search engine optimization, number of questions coming in about that. I think we've probably exhausted that in this kind of forum. We probably need to go back to the folk that are asking about search engine optimization. But it probably links us into what about paid for advertising? Is this something we should consider, guys, on a kind of semi-regular basis, and in what platforms?
I mean, paid for ad. Oh, sorry.
Paid for ad.
Yeah, it definitely has a place. If you are trying to increase customers, increase traffic, increase awareness, that's when paid can be quite an important part of your marketing mix. The good thing about digital paid for advertising is you have more, so say it's pay-per-click advertising, or if you're advertising, doing social media ads, so on, or sponsored posts even on social, or if you are delving more into display advertising and putting that across different websites. The good thing about digital is you get a lot of data, so you get a lot of information. You can try something, particularly with say something like pay-per-click, you could put it up. If you're not on the first page of Google, then you can try running PPC ads to be on the first page of Google. If you know that if only you could be on the first page of Google for these terms, people would come through to your site. It's good for point of need. Then you can start and stop it. You can see did that work. You can set a budget around it and you can test it. But the one thing again with paid for is don't enter into it lightly. Just because it's quite easy to enter the market digitally, it doesn't mean that it doesn't need, it's still your money. It's your money, it's your time, it's your investment, and there's a missed opportunity if you do the wrong thing. So definitely take the time to plan, have a look at, there's resources on Digital Boost. There's one, I think, a route map, which just gives an outline of different types of channels to just get an idea of what's best for you, because depending on your business and your needs and your goals and your budget, the type of paid for advertising that you do will be different.
Yeah, okay. So, John, just thinking about Zoom, we've got a number of questions. A lot of folk are excited about it, of course. But we also have a couple of observations about it. Gary has asked, we've rushed into Zoom, however, its security is not the best, and sometimes it can be costly. Are we aware of any other video platforms that are more secure? And he's referenced SIPH323 video devices. I'm not sure what that is.
It depends. Zoom has security issues to an extent. Depends what sort of level of communication you're going across, bringing it onto Zoom. WebEx is an alternative. Depending on what you need Zoom for, it does serve a lot of purposes pretty easily. But it does depend on the content that you're going to be showing on Zoom. If it's webinars like this, Zoom is perfectly safe. If it's sort of higher business sort of board meetings and stuff like that, maybe consider Teams or something that's kept internal. We've seen a lot of worry and sort of scares at the start of lockdown with the Zoom bombing and stuff like that. They have strengthened that, and that isn't as big an issue. The other worries are still there to an extent, but it's, for the most part, it is fine and secure at the minute. But WebEx is another alternative. Just you're going into sort of bigger price plans. That's the only difference. Zoom ticks a lot of boxes because it's cheap. It functions very easily, and anyone can kind of jump onto it now because everyone knows how to work it. So there is that trade-off, whether you need utmost security or you can trade off a little bit just in case.
Okay, well, I mentioned Brexit at the start of the intro to the webinar today. And an interesting one from Andrew. John, I don't know whether you could answer this. Many European online retailers with .co.uk websites pretending to be UK businesses dominate the Google Shopping and PPC adverts. Do you think this will change after Brexit?
Really don't know. You'd think potentially with Brexit coming in, there will be a lot of changes to security online. I anticipate that .co.uk will be strengthened, and there'll be a bit more of a procedure to purchase one to prove that you're linked to a organization or a person who's actually from or hosting within the UK. But it's all ahead of us, so we really don't know which way it'll go at this stage.
Okay, so the other kind of things that we wanted to talk about, and one that comes up quite a lot in our Business Gateway Digital Boost workshops, is how often should I post over a week, and should they be going to all the platforms that I've got, or and at what time? Sarah, what's your thoughts on that?
I think again, posting, it depends what you've got to say and why you're saying it. So if you, we were talking about communities, if you have a community and if you are very active on social, and if social is a key part of your marketing mix, then yes, if you've got content to share, then you can do that daily, a few times daily. If you don't really have anything to say, then you don't have to post. It's quite difficult. There's no real set rule to posting. I think it depends, what do you get out of it. If you post more, do you get more engagement with your audience? Do you get more traffic to your website? Do you get more sales of your product? If you do, if you post a lot and engagement levels go up, then great, that's where you can focus time and effort. If you find that you're giving out post after post after post and nobody is engaging with them, nobody's liking them, then that's potentially a time to look at, are we posting too much? Are we posting the right kind of thing? But there's no hard and fast rules. I think it's being led by your audience and being led by what they want to hear from you and what you have that's interesting and genuinely useful to tell them.
Does it have to be a call to arms then, for example?
What do you mean, sorry? In terms
of
of
call to action.
Yeah, no, you don't have to be. I suppose it depends where you're posting and why you're posting there. If you have a content-led website and you've got lots of useful information, for example, John, I can imagine you guys do, then you can post as often as you've got something that people need to know. If you become a kind of a go-to news site, if you like, or if your social platforms, if there's a reason for people to come back, then yes, post as often as you've got something to say. It doesn't always have to be a call to action. It doesn't always have to be come and buy with us. But if you're a shop, say, and you've got stock levels that change daily, then yes, post it on Facebook and tell everybody. Whereas if you're me and my kind of marketing or consulting type business, I don't have a lot of interesting things to say 3 times a day that my clients would be like, oh great, it's Sarah again. So we don't post as often. We post when there's something big or something that people really need to know. So it does depend on your business. And you don't have to have a call to action, but it's good to have something. So it's the call to action could be that they need to know this, or if you want them to go to their site, to your site or something, then you have to have a genuine reason that they would want to go.
Okay, so Jim has asked about blogs, John. How long should they be? What should be the content? Where should they be? What
Post it on your
platform?
own website, definitely. You could try and engage with other sort of platforms like Medium and stuff like that if that works for your organization, if that's where an audience that maybe would engage with you would be. How long? It's getting back to the piece of string. Say we've had blogs that would be a couple thousand words long, which are too long for most people to read, but they're very detailed because there's stuff in there that is necessary for the content. Anything below 500 to 600 words is probably too short most of the time, but again, that there's always anomalies that will prove otherwise. Yeah, I would say at least 600 words to just fill out a certain amount of content. Think about what you're trying to get across to people. Is this worth a blog? There needs to be enough for a couple of paragraphs at least of content to go into it. Otherwise, you're kind of wasting a click, because people will click into your blog, expect something, and then get maybe a disappointment when they just see it's like 2 paragraphs short, which it would probably serve them better if you just had it in your post on social media or whatever the message you were trying to get across was, and then direct them to a different link through. But Sarah will probably talk about this anyway with SEO if people are looking to learn more about it, but it's so powerful for building your SEO score with blogs.
Yeah, we've got more SEO questions, but this one is specific. Chris has asked, we're often advised to utilize Google My Business, Google Analytics. Are there YouTube or other video pages that you can recommend which are particularly useful in education training users to become more accomplished at A, improving the integration, coordinating of their website and social media platforms, and B, building a more joined up approach to SEO, PPC, and social media tactics? Wow. Where do you start, Sarah?
So we're looking for resources online to help you with all of these things.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Chris is asking, what kind of video pages, could you use for education and training initially, and then by improving your integration so that you can push those out?
I think if you do want to, because I mean, analytics, Google Analytics, such a powerful platform. There's they have, and it's just changed, so it's now Google Analytics 4 is the new version of Google Analytics. So there's a lot to learn, and we would always start with the Google's own pages. That's where you get the kind of the basic advice, the basic information. We would start with looking at, if you're looking to learn about analytics or something, have a look at their support pages. But there's so many blogs and platforms out there. Digital Boost have a lot of information on Google My Business. I think there's 3 guides in the Digital Boost section of the Business Gateway website on Google My Business and whether it's good for you, how you can use it, how you can start to optimize it. And yeah, there's lots of places online. A lot of the big, like HubSpot's good. Moz has lots of useful SEO information. There's a lot a lot of stuff out there. If you do want, as a rule of thumb, to see if you can trust the information or not, we tend to look at what skin have these guys got in the game. So Moz is an SEO tool and provider, so they are in the industry, they know a lot about it. It does them a favor for more people to do SEO, so they have a lot of good content. The same with HubSpot, they have a lot of good content. Sprout Social have a lot of good content, and Business Gateway through Digital Boost. There's so much content on the website to have a look at. And in terms of integrating it all, once you've started using analytics and you've started using, you're looking at your SEO, you will naturally start to see how it can help you. So how using analytics actually helps you with your SEO, because you go, right, okay, so nobody's landing on these pages, but lots of people are landing on these pages. I wonder why are they ranking? What's happening with them? Who's linking to them? And it can give you different directions. So I mean, I love data and stats, so I would always start with analytics, and that can help you. I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't know if that's answered the question.
Yeah, well, just thinking about data, Frank has asked about QR codes. Now, I thought, I mean, obviously because of the track and trace, they've appeared again, but I thought there was a huge lull in QR codes. They seem to be there for a fashion, and then they kind of disappeared. And Frank is now saying that they're obviously back in vogue because of track and trace and everything. Are they here to stay, and how could we utilize them?
I think the reason they kind of fell off was because of the security issues around them, that people were posting them in public places. You do the QR code process, and then you get sort of phishing link or whatever like that sent straight through. So I think that was why it was dropped off. Now, because of the track and trace, it's that level of trust again, and we kind of are like, yeah, when we see one in a restaurant or pub or wherever they will be, you kind of know that that is official QR code that is linked to that place, and you can trust it. Are they back for good? It's very hard to know. I think people will take advantage of the level of trust that you have in them. There are other and better ways, I guess, of getting through the same message. It depends again on what your end use for them would be. If it is a restaurant or pub, it makes perfect sense. If you see a QR code and you can link to something that you can trust, then perfectly fine to use them. But if you see a QR code just randomly, like on a random Twitter page or something like that, it does make it a bit more dangerous for security purposes.
That's interesting. I hadn't actually thought about that in terms of the QR codes and the security aspect. So one of the questions that we had today leads kind of on to that. So Sarah, any risks that businesses should be aware of once they enter the digital arena?
I think yes, and I think John, you'll probably know a lot more about this arena than the rest of us, but really when you are pushing your whole business onto digital, or if you're going to start serving online, that's when data and security and privacy become paramount, because there's legal obligations, there's laws that you have to abide by. So we've all know about GDPR, but all of a sudden that becomes paramount for everybody if you're online. So it's everything. It's having a secure system in place, having processes in place, it's updating your software and your computers. Those are all so important now, and training your staff. So I think the biggest risk for me would be security. But there's also the risk that you maybe if you move too quickly, or if you kind of just jump 2 feet in without the planning beforehand, then you could potentially end up with a platform that maybe doesn't best suit your needs. If you jump into an online shop and make that, and you've used Shopify, if that doesn't, or an online booking system, say. So I think a risk would be not taking the time to plan and research first. But the main thing would be to focus on your security and your legal obligations.
Yeah, I think you touched on the software update issue. I think we're all guilty of clicking the button that says remind me later or whatever. And I think that's probably a trap we could fall into, John.
Definitely. I think it's probably the second most important thing you can do for your personal security and organization security is updating. The first one being passwords. The minute an update is released, it means they have probably found a vulnerability, and the update is there to fix that vulnerability. If they've found if a company has found a vulnerability in their service, it means that others will probably find it pretty soon as well. So updates aren't just for like a new user design or whatever, it's also for fixing problems on the back end that could risk your personal data, risk your client's data and stuff like that. So the minute an update comes available, please, if it's the one thing you do after this, just update your software immediately.
And what about the passwords then? I mean, there's these obviously sites where you can, keep your passwords all very secure. How good are they in dealing with the security aspect?
Password managers are the best way to go forward now, because we have so many different passwords, and the recommendation is to have a different password on every sign-in you have. Password managers are the way forward, and have a very, very secure password on your password manager, just in case there's any breaches there as well. That side of things. Also, two-factor authentication is vitally important. It's on nearly everything at the minute. It's a hassle, but it's a lot more of a hassle for a hacker who's trying to break into you. If they come across this, it just stops them straight away. You get a lot of suggested passwords at the minute as well that are just a mixture of random letters and numbers, which are very, very strong passwords. If you have a password manager, that's great. If you don't, the other option is phrases. Phrases are very, very difficult to break as well. Instead, never use personal details, obviously, related to your pet or address or anything like that. That's kind of become the norm now, but phrases can be very strong. Just 3 random words, very, very difficult to break. People don't realize that, but it's very, very hard. And that's what NCSC, the National Cybersecurity Centre, are recommending for passwords now, is a phrase, 3 words. Random, don't even need to make sense.
I remember a trainer, this is maybe a year or so ago, saying probably the best password that you could use are lengthy passwords. And if you think of, your top 10 favorite songs, the first line from that song. But you could be there all day putting in a password, couldn't you? That could reach about 50 characters.
I mean, you could, and it's worth it though. Like, especially with organizations, when you're dealing with client data, and if all you have to do is check out how much a fine could be from the ICO if you're in breach of that, it's well worth spending the extra few seconds just to put in a password. I wouldn't necessarily use a line from a song. I've heard of a few breaches where people have used lines from poetry and they've still been caught out, because with machine learning and artificial intelligence, you can run through a mass amounts of data now very quickly, and these lines can be used. Random words joined together, just completely out of the blue, are very, very difficult to break because it doesn't make sense. It can't be computed.
I think our worry, certainly for Business Gateway, is that we have a significant number of micro businesses, and the last thing that they think about, Sarah, is the security aspect until the security is breached. So I wonder how we get them into that space where they include it as part of their digital proposition.
I know, I mean, and it is something that I know from ourselves, when you're starting your business, there's so much to do. There's so much to think about. There's so little time, so many things to focus, that then when digital's on the to-do list, then security is also on the to-do list. But I think as well, you don't always understand it all. So you have to do something, but yeah, you heard something a while ago that's maybe not best practice now. And I think it's really difficult but it just needs to be front of mind. So whenever, I think the GDPR, at the time, it was a pain, and having the cookie acceptance, it was a pain, and it is to deal with kind of back end for marketing and websites. However, it pushes it front of mind. So you know about GDPR and you know about all these things because you have to have your cookie acceptance. You do it on every website. And I think as it becomes more visible and it's more of an obligation, then you do have to think of it. But I mean, John, I think you'd probably have better advice than me, because I'm probably a person that it wasn't right at the front of my list when we started our company, and then quite quickly we thought, oh wow, this needs a full-blown strategy.
I think the pain point is a great one as well, because that's what, the minute you see something that you have to do, it's like, oh, I don't want to do that. But I mean, it's a pain for every other company as well. So nobody is alone in this. We're all in it together, and we can help each other get over the line and make sure that we're secure. I'm actually going to plug some things from our own company that we can help with this. We do have a session that we're running at the minute in partnership with Scottish Government and the NCSC called Exercise in a Box. Basically what it is, we run through a scenario, and by the end of the session, you will find out how secure your organization is. This service is completely free. It was pulled together by the National Cybersecurity Centre. We have a team of ethical hackers who sit down and tell you what to do next, or have you thought about this? How secure are passwords? They just kind of guide you through it. Completely free. If you go onto our website, you'll find details on it. And you can figure out pretty quickly how secure you are when you don't know where to go, because for a lot of people, beyond passwords and backing up data, you might not know what's next. Where are the vulnerabilities? So you come and do that session, and you can figure out pretty quickly where the vulnerabilities are. The other thing is, if you do have a problem, if you do get hacked and you don't know what to do, we have a free incident response helpline that you can ring. 9 to 5 officially, but between us, it's run 24 hours because hacks happen at any hour of the day and night. You ring that, and we'll tell you exactly whether your suspicions are true, or maybe we can look into it for you a bit, and then we can guide you to people who will be able to help you in the next steps. It's that peace of mind that you need when you're hacked and you're like, God, what next? Where do I turn to? Because for small businesses, SMEs, you just don't have the money to have a cybersecurity individual on your team, or even have a consultant that's working with you. It's too expensive. So products like this, basically why we exist, is that we can help. So yeah, that line is on our website as well, and you can find that, and it's just for free.
Okay, you've just answered one of the questions there from Jamie about GDPR, so great. We've only got a couple of minutes left, so what I'll do is, can I just fire a few questions at you, and you guys just jump in with one-word answers or just quick sentence or whatever. Michael's asked, online businesses need to know how to connect with clients. I'm a startup, haven't connected with any customers. I'm offering alternative therapy and counselling online and in person. How do I start to network and find my customers? Anybody? Great difficulty? Instagram, Facebook?
Yeah, start off, if you have to make a start off free. If you have a physical premises, look at Google My Business. There's lots of considerations, but look at that. Set up a Facebook page if that's appropriate for you, or so look at social media, set up a page, start interacting. So start talking to people, potentially join related social groups, or have a look about online, see what competitors are doing, where are they appearing.
Okay, Alan has asked, I've developed an off-road electric roller skate. He's looking for help to get from a working prototype to a sellable product. How can he reach out to people via the digital platforms to get them interested?
Find other people working in your area and start conversations with them. People are a lot more friendly than you might think who are working in the same industry as you. It's not all about competition. Ask them what they've done and for help. That's the easiest way if you're in a sort of unique marketplace like that person will be in. And then from there are so many different options that will be available to you with regard to different public bodies as well, like Business Gateway and so on and so forth.
Okay, I think we've kind of covered this one. Instagram, photography, do the pictures have to be super standard? Can they just be taken with a phone and then just a caption?
I think it depends what market you're in and what sector and why you're using Instagram. If it's kind of behind the scenes, this is us, this is what we're doing, then those kind of images would probably be fine if you're trying to share the kind of the personality of your company. If you are competing with other people who have lots of polished images, if it's a consumer product, if you need to be sharing product shots, then that's maybe when you want to start investing a little bit in higher class, more polished photography. So I think it depends how important is Instagram and those images to your business.
Okay. So I think we've kind of covered everything. We do have a number of questions about specific businesses that folk have got, and we'll try and answer those offline, either via the Business Gateway network, or we'll interact with you directly. So thanks very much, Sarah, and thank you, John, for joining us today. And thank you to everyone who joined us today online. If you asked a question, thank you very much. And as I said, some of the questions we didn't get around to, but for more information and support in rebuilding and adapting your business with digital, just go to begateway.com. And there you'll find some digital support and also the complete list of our workshop webinars. For more general business support information and services, you'll also find it at begateway.com. So this has been our Business Gateway webinar. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you'll join us again for another of our Business Gateway webinars next year. And if I can take the opportunity to wish you a pleasant Christmas and a Happy New Year. And from all of us, that's it for today, and bye for now.